Hi, welcome to the Conversation Shop. Today we have our very special guest, Mr. Arthur Johnson.
Yes, sir.
Arthur, welcome, man. I'm very happy to have you on the show today.
Thank you.
I'm excited about our topic, which is Black fatherhood. We're going to be discussing all the different aspects and the myths of African American men and fatherhood. And I think it's going to be a great show today. Arthur, let's start by telling my audience a little bit about yourself, who you are, and why you're passionate about having this conversation today.
Well, my name is Arthur, and I got kids, little kids, big kids, grown kids. But, you know, it's important to have fathers in their life because growing up, it's rough out there, and kids need fathers, especially nowadays, the way these kids is. You gotta have somebody backbone. It's good to have mama too, but you got to have the daddy too.
Yeah, and one of the main reasons I wanted to have this conversation on the show today is because, as I travel around and I talk to a lot of different people, I hear a lot of different myths about African American men, black men, men of color, and our desire to take care of our kids and being in our children's lives. And you and I both know that's a big myth in the life. So I want to talk about that. So we're just going to dive right in. So, let's start with you, and then I'll share a little bit with my audience about me growing up. Talk to me about, your father growing up, your life, your father in your life, lack of a father in your life, and how that determined how you were going to be a parent yourself.
Well, I had father, I had stepdad, I had a real dad, I had uncles, I had everything in my life. Granddad, still got that.
Okay.
And for me, determined on raising my kids was based on just how I grew up and how I wanted to for them to be better. So
Better, got you.
So I based it myself I'm different really. I don't really think like a lot of people. I think what's best for me. And
do you think that came from the men that were in your life when you were younger, the lessons they taught you, or was that you think that's just innately who Arthur Johnson is?
I think I'll say a little bit of both.
A little bit of both?
Because it definitely helped to have discipline like I did. But, as my kids got older, and it just make you realize that, you got to change something.
Right.
If you want them to change, you want them to be right. So
you got to be right.
Right, you got to be right. So
well, I'll share some with you about when I grew up, about my childhood. Like growing up, I always call it typical like most of us do. A lot of women. So raised by, I say predominantly by women. That was my experience. My dad lived in California, and my mother and father weren't together. So I had a stepfather as well. Right. So my dad lived in California. My mom and my stepdad at the time were living in New Orleans, Louisiana, and I was going between New Orleans and Natchez, Mississippi. So when I was in Natchez, my father was my grandfather, who was a businessman, owned a nightclub, owned its own business, was a master electrician, and very well respected in the community. And then I had my uncle, on the other hand, who was going to teach me all the things my daddy didn't teach me, which was how to be a man in the streets, protect myself, how to conduct myself, how to be honorable, all the things that we're taught.
That's what the
out of the house. The uncle got me out on the block. You're going to have to be able to navigate being out here in the streets, but you're also going to have to be able to navigate being in the classrooms, because in my household, college was abound. My father, his sister, my uncle, they went to college.
See?
On my mother's side of the family, that wasn't necessarily the case. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I'm the first to get a college degree on my mother's side of the family. I'm the first. So I set the mark for my cousins that came after me, who are all, have college degrees. And I'm not saying you have to have a college degree to be successful.
Right.
I'm just saying we were pushed either into going to school or the military or to get a trade. Because I have a cousin that is, his name is Arthur Johnson as well. That's why I laugh. I'm so drawn to you. Johnson is like our family name. But my first cousin, Arthur Johnson, prime testament to being driven to be successful. He started off, man, working offshore on the boats, on the rigs. Then he started doing the barges, being on the crew, running the barges up and down the Mississippi River. Then he started, as he learned more, went to New York and started working on the boats in the yards there. Now he's one of the very few boat captains that happen to be African American.
Oh, really?
No college degree, worked his way up, and is extremely successful. I'm very, very proud of my little cousin. So to me, it's a testament of where you come from. We went to church every Sunday. We had the structure. We had the core values. But again, there's no perfection. We got into trouble, was in the streets doing the things we weren't supposed to do.
That's right.
But we always had that foundation to pull us back. So for me, that's why I know as a young man, when I got, let's say, kid to 10 years old, I was a mama's boy. Once I got 10 plus, I needed a man in my life because I was doing things that young men do.
Exactly.
And a man had to be in my life to tell me, number one, teach me the things to do and what not to do. Teach me how to be an honorable man instead of somebody that's shady.
Right.
And then teach me the rules. There's respect. There's a way that a man conducts himself. There's a way that a man moves in the community. There's a way that a man dresses. There's a way that a man talks. All of those things were instilled in me, not only by my grandfather and my uncle, but when my dad was around him as well. And my father, quite frankly, right now, even though I can't say I had him as a father, quote unquote, but he's one of my best friends in life now. So I'm sorry to get a little long-winded, but I wanted to share with the audience and where the desire for this kind of conversation came for me. So I want to give you an opportunity to comment as well.
Well, for me, as you say, your uncle took you to the block. For me, that was my father tried to teach me that. He tried to say, hey, you need to go learn this and do this and make this like that. That was from my father. Mm-hmm. So that's why when I came up and raised my kids, I was different because, I wasn't trying to teach them how to run the block, I can tell you that.
Right, but let's talk about it. Let's be real. Let's have this
That's
real
what I'm telling
conversation.
you. That's
Because
what I'm
my
telling
dad
you.
was trying to teach me how to tear up the block as
That
well.
was my dad trying to teach me how to do
Right.
it. I went, you know what I mean? I did what I did when I was shouty back in the day, but that wasn't because of him.
Right.
But that's what he tried to instill in me. That was his life.
Yeah,
The
that
way
was
he
my
wanted-
stepdad with me.
That's what he wanted to do. That was his life. Mm-hmm. And for me, that wasn't my life to be playing like that. No. Mm-hmm. And I will never install that in my kids to do. What my kids saw me every day do was get up and go to work.
Right.
That's what my kids see me do, and that's what they remember.
Right. I love that, man. I like that because, we're going to talk about that a little bit more in our next segment. But, I have a similar background because, parents and kids want to know how we overcome that. How do what made us so different to make a different decision than to go down that road and then to do that? Because, I'm sure we could do a lot of things to the fullest.
Exactly.
But there's a pedigree that I feel that men that know how to be men have. And I've always seen that in you from the time that I met you. From the time I met you, man, I see you with your wife, being a father, taking care of your kids, going to work, doing the things that you need
All
to
the
do. When I
time.
see you go out, you're out with your wife. You're out spending time with her. That's a real man. That's a father
That's
to
right.
me. That's the head of a household. So I salute you in that. But again, I'm going to let you comment real quick. After you comment, we're going to go into our break, and then we're going to come back.
Okay.
But go ahead. You can comment on this.
Yeah, see, and then just when I raise my kids and when they see me go to work every day, it pays off because that's one thing they remember every day, all the time is about, when we was at the hospital, I did this. You're at the hospital, I did this. And now my daughter says she want to be a doctor, even though I'm not a doctor. But she been to the hospital with me plenty of times at work. She know I work at the hospital, which was on the loading dock.
Right, but she's seen.
But she's seen me getting up, going to work at the hospital every day. Well, she's 14 now, and she's been saying since she was little that she want to be a doctor.
Yes.
So I'm hoping I can help her get on to this. And so far, so good. She's still saying it. So.
Well, you did it with your walk. And those are the things, like on the other shows that we've talked about. That's the thing, as fathers, we're responsible for educating our kids and teaching them the right way. And that's something to say about consistency in walk, consistency in movement, and consistency in life. Right. So you're validating the things that you're saying because she see you do them. She sees you emulate those things. Your son, in your walk every day, in how he sees you interact with his mother, how he sees you take care of the family, is teaching him how to be a man. You're teaching him how to be a father, how to take care of his family. And again, I salute you for that. Real soon, guys, I want to thank you. We'll be right back after this break. Thanks for watching The Conversation Shop. Welcome back to The Conversation Shop. I'm here with my guest, Mr. Arthur Johnson. We're talking about fatherhood and specifically black fatherhood, being an African-American father. And Arthur, we're going to jump right back into the conversation. So early on, we were talking about, things that shaped us and things that we learned when we were kids from father figures in our lives, people that had major influence on us that helps us to be better fathers, now. Right. But one of the things I wanted to talk about is overcoming adversity so we can help some other parents and some other young kids, that may be watching the show. So for instance, when I was growing up, I get, well, how did you look past that? Because I saw all the dollars, all the money that was coming through the door may not have been when I was younger from the right spaces. But I came from a mother who had me when she was 16, so she didn't know how to be an adult. Right. And she made some mistakes, and she put herself in situations with stepfathers, those kinds of things that, led us to different decisions that may not have been the standard decision or the decision that the status quo would make. Right. But as you know, being young people of color in the community, there's not a lot of roads that are available to us to be successful. And again, not making excuses, but during the 60s and 70s, during the 70s and 80s, I should say, those are some of the things we were navigating, and at the times we may not have made the right decisions, right? So I went through that. I saw those things. I went through the police raids in the house. I went through that when I was young, like freaking out, and seeing the police as a negative, and seeing, going to school with a backpack with $100,000 in my backpack because my stepdad told me to take it with me and bring it back. So I went through all of those things. So I saw the things that would entice you to choose something negative, right? To go, education ain't it, I'm doing this. Right. But I will tell you, for me, I remember I told you earlier that my dad, aunts, uncles, they all went to college. So on my grandmother and my grandfather's side of the family, always saw that. So I can tell you from ever since I was little, I never thought it was an option not to go to school. Right. I didn't even think I had to do what I needed to do to get through high school, to get to college. That was the plan. Right. And I was resolute in the plan. I was unwavering in the plan because I saw the value in the process, that education, getting through that, and getting the degree and getting out, taking care of myself. But at the same time, moving here in Madison, right, as a young adult at 18, right, coming here and taking care of myself. Because when I moved here, my family was like, you're on your own if you go up there. Right. So you're going to have to figure it out. So when I came to Madison on my own. And I came to a city, to me, that celebrated education. It was a city full of educated people. Indeed. So it just built upon the foundation that I had. And again, that foundation was laid by my grandfather and the things that I saw growing up with my dad, my aunts, and my uncles going to school. I wasn't, the corner I saw, I'll be honest with you, I saw it for what it was. Now, I respected that, but I saw that as short money. I saw the education and the career and getting a trade as long money. And that's how it was explained to me by my grandfather. So that's how I overcame it. So when I looked at life, I didn't see that as a means to be successful, to be honest with you. I saw that as a means to be unsuccessful and to have everything that I worked for taken from me. So it was easy for me not to make that decision. And again, that foundation was laid by the father figure that was in my life, which was my grandfather, my grandmother, who was a father and a mother, and my mom, who was a father and a mother as well. So I'll let you comment on that and share your experience as well.
Yeah, buddy. See, times back then was rough.
Yeah.
But see, the thing is, what really made me change was like you say, I did my little dabble when I was younger. But once I had my first son, it was like, that's it. I'm gonna do what's right.
Right.
So I'm gonna give me a job and raise him and do what I had to do. And I've been working at that same job for 17 years.
Yes.
And I never expected that to happen because, I didn't think I was going to ever work. I'm not even going to get no job. I'm just going to kick it and do what I'm doing.
Right.
But once I had my son, it made me say, no. You better go get you a job and do what's right. And that's what I did. I went to UW. First, I went to Kirby. Got hired at Kirby. That BS job. I got hired at UW the next day. I was so happy. Took that damn Kirby machine back, like, here you go. I got a real job. That lady like, this is a real job. I said, no, UW is a real job.
Right.
So that was beautiful for me. But once I had my kid, it's like no more game for me. So that's what made me really forget about everything else. Once I had my kid, I was like focused on raising him and not getting in trouble so I can be here for him.
Now let me ask you a question. I hear that and I respect that wholeheartedly, but again, I'm going to ask you, was that something that you feel was just innately in you, or did you learn that from, the powerful women that were in your life? Or
see, not right. See, earlier you said from your grandfather, your father, all that, but grandma, without question, is the most powerful person in my life.
Well, I call them mother fathers.
Right.
So when we talk about fatherhood and fathers, we're going to talk about the mother fathers in our life as well, because my mother father was a grandmama too.
Oh, for sure. Without mother father, it wasn't nothing going on.
Right.
She made sure everything was right. She made sure your ass was right.
Right.
She made sure your ass didn't smell. Make sure your ass smelled right.
Right.
So without grandma, though, none of that happened. Like everything I did after that, I thought about what would grandma say, because I didn't want to hear that mouth.
But you know what? You're talking about the core values.
No, I know.
Your grandmother laid, them whoopings we used to get. Boy, you're so bad. Get your bad, and I don't know what you're gonna do, right? But you remember those, right?
Oh, for sure.
You remember those lessons, because I know I remember those lessons, and those are the things that carried me forward, and those are the things that I teach my kids.
And to be honest, people may not want to hear this, but you need more grandmothers like that now.
Yes, you
these
do.
kids so bad now. You need more grandmothers, because I don't understand how some of these kids act the way they do. It's off the chain to me.
Well, you know what? Let's talk about that. Since we dove right into that, I was moving us kind of, from our youth, learning how to be good fathers, and then coming into fatherhood and having our kids. But I'm glad we got into that, when you were 17 years old and you had your son, and that made you want to focus and do the right thing. But let's dive into fatherhood. You talked about school and these kids out here. That's some of the things in Madison that really jumps out to me and really bothers me because I feel personally that the buck starts with us first.
With the parents,
before
exactly.
The kids leave the house and go to the schools, what's happening in the home? So that's what I want you and I to talk about now. Fatherhood, parenting in the home.
Right.
Because as we talked about earlier, our kids seem to be disconnected. When they go to school, I'm getting the attitude that they don't think anybody in the school can tell them what to do or has any influence over them. And then outside of that, it seems like there's a disconnect. The teachers have things that they need to push them forward and for them to be successful with the education. And then they seem to be going to the schools, not vesting in getting the education, just vesting in being there.
Just being there, thinking there for the show. But it ain't no show. The show is to get them grades up.
Right.
And for my kids, when my kids act up and teacher called me, then okay, put me on that speed down button. So every time she do what you just said, please call me. And once they call me enough.
But what you're talking about is accountability and again, being a father. you're active. The schools know that you're engaged
Yes,
with your
indeed.
kids.
Yep.
Now let's talk about, that less than 1% of that people that look like us that are engaged in that way.
Yeah,
The
right.
majority of the parents that I'm seeing are not engaged in that way at all.
No.
They don't call the schools. They
No,
don't care what's
they
happening.
don't.
They seem, keyword seem, not to care what's going on at the schools with the kids until they get suspended, until something bad happens.
Because let me tell you, I just went through this a couple months ago. My daughter, 8th grade right now, she go to Spring Harbor. It was boys messing with her, and boys messing with other girls. And she been saying it for a long time. And finally, I'm like, okay, let me call up here. So then the principal set up a meeting for the girls and all the boys who's involved. And we had this meeting, and we get to the meeting, all the parents not there. You got boys there, but you don't got no parent there with them.
No fathers there with
No
the mother.
father or mother. No father or mother. I'm there because my daughter there, so I'm there. See a couple other people I know from the past, and then we getting into it. But I can tell you, since they had that meeting, it's been good. There ain't been no more problems.
But what was the purpose of the meeting?
Because the boys kept messing with the girls, but then the girls say they keep messing with them, but then the boys go to their mom, oh no, the girls messing with us. There's a lot of back and forth.
Right.
But to kill it all, we brought them all together.
And no parents were there.
No, we was there.
You were there.
We was in our group, they was in their group. And then we all came together and point out, hey, what's the reason? Can't now get no good reason why it goes on. So we're like, if y'all ain't got no good reason, then won't y'all stop?
Right.
It stopped. So,
Right, but how many African American fathers was at that meeting? Excuse me. It was you, right?
it was I.
Right, so you were the representative for black fathers.
I was the
So
only
for
one.
those boys, you were their father.
I was the only black man there, yes, sir.
And see, to me, when in our community, when we have kids and those students, those boys, right, that are trying to figure out what's the right way to act, for someone to teach them that doing it this way ain't the way to go. They need someone to tell them that they can look up to, that they can respect, that looks like them, right?
But I can say this, it was only black, it was white too.
No, I understand, but it still doesn't knock fatherhood.
Right.
Well, we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back and finish this conversation. We'll be back on The Conversation Shop. Hi, welcome back to The Conversation Shop. We're here with my very special guest, Mr. Arthur Johnson. And Arthur, we're going to dive right back in. We were having a conversation about a meeting that was going on at the school with the young ladies and the men and the young boys at the school. There was a meeting where the parents were invited to come. There were a lot of ladies and very influential women in the room, but you were the only male figure, and I want you to comment on that situation, but also comment on how you feel father figures in the room would have made an impact as well, not to take away from the mothers.
Right. Well, the main reason for the meeting also was because a couple of days before that, a couple of the boys had pushed my daughter on the ground and kicked her.
Oh, wow.
And so she got up and she scraped one of their face up with her nails, and so that was the main reason for the meeting.
I understand.
So when I come to the meeting, I'm mad as hell because I done told her already that they picking on her, and she, like, oh, we'll figure it out. Okay, now they done did what I was trying to stop them from doing, which is attack her and kicked her and stuff. So when I called school, I'm mad as hell, and she already know. And I'm like, I shouldn't say what I said, but I said somebody gonna get effed up. I said, because I'm trying to prevent this.
Right.
I said, so when we have this meeting tomorrow, I'll be there. She's like, well, maybe you don't need to come if you're that angry. I said, no, I'll be there, and I will be angry. I said, but I will be there because something got to be done. And so when I came to the meeting, I was the only guy, and I expected to see more guys, but I didn't. So we sat over there with the parents and we talked about what they say, what they say, and we laughed and we got through it. So we come over to the kids and hear the story of why, and then all of a sudden they all laughing and playing, so they get through it. So to me, like, if they talk it out,
Right.
like we did.
Conflict resolution.
Right, bring it to the forefront and work on it, it can happen. But
Right.
for them to go to school every day and have this person mess with him and you don't want to say nothing because you just like arguing with this person.
Right.
Or like one mother said, oh, they just like each other. Yeah, that could be. But you got to know when to stop. You can't throw them
Exactly.
on the ground and kick them because now you done messed up. That's breaking the rules right there.
Right.
And we can't have that.
Well, let's talk about that. You're talking about throwing on the ground, kicking.
Yeah.
And that tells me it can't be too many men in the house if that's how you're treating you. Is that how your mom's being treated at home?
Exactly.
You know, so when your daughter's in your household, she's watching how you treat her mom, how you treat them, how you treat the kids, you know, so she gets an understanding of how a man should treat a woman. And then going to school, what that tells me is, suggests to me that some of the role models in the homes, you know, no knock to anybody, they either may not be there, they may either be bad role models, or, you know, they may be disconnected. But going back to it is for boys and young men, you know, it's very important for us to be that role model, for us to be the example, for them to show them how to walk. And then you talked about something earlier that I want to dive into a little bit. You know, as we're talking about being into the schools and being a father and a parent dealing with a student in the schools here in Madison, right? The schools tell us, you know, suggest that people that look like us are really not engaged, right? Yeah. Especially the fathers are not engaged. So I have a engaged father going to the schools, communicate the things they say we don't do, communicating, right? Yeah, got your number, communicating, going to the schools, you're engaged, right? Yeah. So you're doing all the things that you're asked to do, supposed to do, and probably going above and beyond on some stages. So you've done everything while letting the school know this is happening, this is going on with my daughter. They're supposed to be intervening in that situation to keep what happened to your daughter from happening. Exactly. So to keep her from getting assaulted because she was assaulted. Yeah. So the school probably didn't even address the fact that she was assaulted.
That's what I said.
So that's an issue. She was assaulted, right?
I want them prosecuted.
Right, and then when she gets up to defend herself, then she's in trouble because in her head, she's talked to her father. Her father has called the school. She knows everything that you've done to try to keep this from happening. Yeah. And now that this happened, she's being punished as if she's equally as guilty or equally as engaged in the situation as the boy was.
That's exactly what
when
happened.
The school should have pulled him to the side and addressed the situation immediately. Yeah. But again, it seems like there's a culture here in Madison where we only respond when there's a situation that happens. And then when the school doesn't respond well, when a parent gets upset, we want to blame the parent for being upset instead of looking in the mirror at the school and going, we should have handled this situation differently. What could we have done to prevent this child from getting assaulted, number one, and what could we have done to prevent this engaged parent from being upset, who's rightfully upset? And let me share something with you. The school's not going to tell you that because there's going to be liability issues with them admitting liability, admitting that they could have stopped it. So let me share something with you. What you're not hearing and what you're dealing with is the school knowing that there was an assault done on campus and not wanting to admit it because it means they're at fault.
Hear what they say, the cameras don't show so well. I say, so every incident we have, you say the camera don't show well. Do y'all need new cameras? Did we do a bake sale or something to get you some cameras or something?
Well, let me ask you this question, right? This is a hypothetical question. Now I'm turning into Brother Man. I'm Brother Man right now, right? So Brother Man says, yeah, I see that happen to your child, but what if that was Miss Becky's daughter, okay, that's from Middleton, and Leroy, my son, pushed her down on the ground and kicked her? Will we be having a meeting about, what's going on? Or when you called the school saying that Leroy was messing with Becky, would they have nipped it in the bud immediately? Right. I want your opinion about it because from the Brubman perspective, they would have nipped that in the bud immediately. That would have never gotten to the point where Becky was on the ground, kicked and hurt, and had to defend herself. So do you have a similar perspective? How do you feel about that?
Well, it's hard to say because the schools go with this, I gotta go through this protocol, I gotta go through this protocol. The more you say, the more I can do. So like, she come home and tell me every day, oh yeah, he messed with me, but at school we're not saying nothing. So, then it's conflicting with me because I'm calling the school like, hey, she's saying it like, oh, she didn't tell us nothing. So basically what they say, if it happened, you gotta say something, and we can document it.
Right.
The more we document, the more we can do. But if you don't tell us, you just try to handle it on your own, and we don't know, then we can't help you.
Okay, that's like, now let's talk about our community. How do we support that craziness? Because I call it craziness, not reporting, right?
Right.
Because we had the no stitch, right?
Yeah.
Oh, so now you're a snitch. Now you're telling you're snitching. So now when we don't report it, right, and there isn't that documentation that these things are happening, then I'll say we can't get mad when the situation exasperates, and then we defend ourselves because we got to lay the groundwork. There has to be evidence. I'm just sharing with you. There has to be substantiated evidence in the schools now to support this.
Their action.
Their actions.
But for me, I don't care nothing about snitching, nothing. If it comes to my kids, I'm snitching everything I got to say, I'm going to say it.
Thank you. But I'm talking about the kids now. The kids in the schools are dealing with this, right?
Yeah, that's true. And I tell her, don't be scared. If that boy's mess with you, if he mess with you every single day, go tell on him. That's the only way something going to happen. If you don't say nothing, you just let him keep coming up doing it, then it's going to keep going. It's going to keep going.
Right.
The more you say, the more he get in trouble, the more he going to stop.
Got you. Well, glad we talked about that, but I want to move the conversation a little bit further, right? So let's talk about, tell me this then, so let's not jump away from schools. As a African American man and a father here in the community, let's talk about ways that you feel you can be allowed to be more engaged in the process. Education of your daughter, respect it.
Well, you know how I can do that? Well, let me tell you. For myself, I just moved to the east side of Madison. I never lived on the east side. I went to West. All my other kids went to Memorial. But now my daughter, 8th grade, finna graduate. So now I gotta take her to East. So we went to the school, check it out, had like orientation night. And I liked it because I didn't know it was like that, They got so many programs for kids to get into. Like it should be no way you should get in trouble at East High School.
Right.
They got programs for after school, before school, during school. They got stuff for the parents to do, to come help out with the certain events.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, East, from the beginning, it looked pretty nice. I was a little hesitant. I'm like, East a little solid, but we live closer to East. And to me, East got a lot of programs for the kids. Kids just got to be willing to do it.
So let's talk about that.
And not get in trouble because they giving you opportunity all day at East. Plenty of things, plenty of programs to work on. Dance club, you got video game clubs, all kind of clubs for whatever you like, but they got it.
But as a father, how can we, as a father, be more influential in helping push our kids to realize the opportunities that are available to them, let's say at an East High School, because I hear about those programs and those pathways, but one thing I'll say to you is that it seems like in our households, the people that look like me, there's a disconnect in where the value is with those things that are available, right? As a parent, on one hand, I want to say, well, it's the school's problem. We're not being represented in the schools. There's no pictures of us. The teachers act like we're not welcome in the classrooms. All these negative things, right? We hear about the schools. Let's take that and throw that to the side. Now, the actions of the students, right?
It's the main point.
It's the main problem to me. It's the main source of the issue. And then what happens is it's the self-fulfilling prophecy, right? The kids are young. They don't know any better, so they're going into the schools. Anytime someone says something to them, it's freak out. Oh. It's yell, scream, like we talked about. It's freak all the way out, and they don't understand that the freak out is what gets them in trouble. When they're talking to a police officer, a freak out. They don't understand that that's disorderly.
Yeah, that's what they don't want to see.
They don't understand it. Calm it down, right? And then they think they can turn up to everybody else. They think turn up is the thing. And so what that tells me is your parents turning up at home? Because your parents probably going to get arrested just like you. So how do we teach our kids? Key word is core values, right? My children right now can sit down at 14 and 11 and have a conversation with you about how they're feeling. So we have to be able to, as a parent and as a father, it's very important for me to teach my children how to communicate effectively, how to deal with conflict effectively, how to express themselves, again, effectively in order to make sure that they're protecting themselves, they're communicating properly to the teachers and to the administration at the schools? Because if they're doing that, I got that back 1,000%.
1,000%. I've been doing this for years.
So how do you feel about that? Comment on that real quick.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, let me tell you this. For instance, my daughter back in the day, this is how they treat us. My daughter back in the day was about to fight, right? Mm-hmm. The girl hit her, and I just happened to turn the corner, and she said, "Oh, I'm finna fight this girl." I said, "No, you're not. No, you're not. I'm finna call the police. We ain't finna fight nobody." So I called the police. They boom. The girl hit her, and she didn't do nothing. But they tell her, "Oh no, you said you was gonna hit her." Like, what? You said you was gonna hit her? She said that, yeah, but she didn't hit her though. You see, so that's why
The grades are so iffy, but we have to be able to teach our kids how to navigate those grades.
Yeah, I mean, we was mad at it, but that was the thing I tried to do. That's why I say I tried to get her not to fight and do the right thing, and we still get a ticket because she say I'm
because
gonna
of
fight.
a threat.
Yeah, because she
of a
said
threat.
I'm gonna fight you.
I hear you. Hold that thought. We're going to finish that conversation on our next segment, but I want to thank you and join us again after the break with the Conversation Shop. Hi, welcome back to the Conversation Shop. I'm here with my very special guest, Mr. Arthur Johnson. And Arthur, we're going to dive right back into our conversation, talking about fatherhood, but we were talking about, parenting in the Madison schools and some of the things that the students and parents experience in those situations. But I want to change the topic a little bit to kind of bring us back to focus on, Black fatherhood and parenting. And I wanted your opinion about a couple of things, and I'll start by just sharing mine. Mm-hmm. A couple of things I wanted to talk about very briefly was, to get your opinion on, just raising kids. What do you think? What are those core values that you think are important to instill in our kids and instill in our community? I think those core values should be, integrity, honesty, hard work, and preparing the way for those that come behind us. That's how I was raised growing up in the South, that I have a responsibility to every person that looks like me that comes behind. So I had to prepare the way. So if I'm preparing the way, I have to do it the right way, right? Because sometimes I'm going to be the only African-American face that some of these people ever see. Sure. And the way that I act and the way that I present myself is going to, right or wrong, is going to be what they base their assumptions or their opinions on. Mm-hmm. And I take that very, very seriously. And I don't want that opinion to be of something that came out of a video or associated with something criminal. True. That's just something that I'm not into. And then, one of the other things I wanted to talk about and wanted you to comment on is, self-identification. We talked about that a little bit. You being an African-American father and having an African-American wife, how do you teach your kids, about diversity and how to interact with people that don't look like them? But also with me knowing you and knowing that you have some family members that are biracial or multi-ethnic, how do you navigate or help advise your nieces and nephews that are biracial in terms of who do they identify with? Do they identify themselves as black? Do they identify themselves as biracial? Do they identify themselves as white, or whatever the other combination would be? Right. As a parent myself, I have biracial children, but I come from the States. All of us are not 100% anything, mm-hmm. But we have two responsibilities, or my responsibility to my children are this: to prepare their way is to prepare them to on how society is going to view them and how they have to navigate the world outside of our doors. Yeah. So in my preparation of that, I teach my children that they're going to be seen in the world as black men and black women, and they have to be able to navigate the world through that lens. Yes, sir. Now, the other responsibility that I have to my children is to teach them about everything that makes them who they are and to be proud of that. Because at no time do I want my children ever to look down upon, feel bad about or think there's something negative about who their mother is, who their grandparents are, the grandfathers and aunts and uncles that love them just as much as
Right.
the other side of their family are. So you don't have to deny who you are. So I teach my children to be proud of everything that makes them who they are. But in society, as they leave those doors, they have to be able to navigate the world as people of color.
Right.
And number one, to be resolute in it, to be firm in who they are, because my children know who they are. So how do we help children figure out who they are? It comes from the parents. We have to help them, right?
Yeah.
So help them with that self-identification and actualization so they know who they are. So when they communicate to the teachers, when they communicate to their friends, they can have a conversation about who they are. They can have a conversation about their mother, their stepdad, their siblings at home, but also have a conversation about everything that makes them who they are. And my children are growing up in Marshfield, Wisconsin, so they're navigating being minorities in a larger context, but my kid's stepfather's white. So the household that they live in, their mother's white. So they're living in this household, so my kids are navigating a dichotomy that's very, very different from most. And they are resolute and firm in who they are as people of color. And we're a testament to it working. It works. It works when you have open communication and you explain things to your children.
That's what I do.
And I take being a father extremely seriously, right? So as my kids come to Madison and they're interacting with a lot of minority kids and, you know, people that look like us, because my kids want to be engaged with kids that look like them. Right? But some of the things that they share with me, you know, as a father, our dad in Marshfield, it's a competition to be smart for everybody. Nobody wants to be the knucklehead, right? So
Marshfield or Marshall?
Marshfield, Wisconsin. Marshfield,
okay.
up by Stevens Point.
Okay.
So everybody in the community is thriving to push forward, to excel. And then I come back here in Madison, my kids come here and they go, Dad, I talk to kids here and they don't seem like they really care about school. So there's not this competition to be the best, right?
No.
And then in my household, I teach my kids, you know, there's no losers here. I teach my kids to be winners. And what I mean by that is, it's not that failure is not going to happen. Failure has to happen to teach you a lesson on how not to do it again.
Yes,
but I teach my kids, if you strive for 100% and you fall short and you're 99, 98, 95, or even 90, that's still a good place to be in, right? So we always push ourselves to be the best that we can. Best that we can as a person. I've learned, right, through my walk, I didn't make the right decision. So my responsibility as a father is to wear my bruises out in the open and be honest with my kids. I tell my kids the truth. I don't lie to them. So in my honesty and my truth, I'm teaching them how to make good decisions. I tell them about my bad decisions so they don't make those bad decisions, right? I tell them about the good decisions because they can see the results of those good decisions. And all I can do is hope that in my honesty as a father, in the honesty as the love that I have for them, and being engaged in their lives, that I can teach them to be better men and be better women with the help of all the great things that their mother's doing. So we're not leaving out mother fathers, but this conversation isn't about mother fathers.
Right.
This conversation is about fathers. And before I let you talk, I want to say this to my audience and say it firmly. Black men have always been engaged in the lives of their children, but in a non-traditional way. Now, in our families, did we have, you know, marriages? Yeah, there's a lot of married families, but there's a lot of families where there's from the outside, it seems like it's a single family home, but that father lives someplace else. That father comes and takes those kids to school every day. That father gives that mother money. It may not be what we think a child support under the traditional standpoints, but he does what he can to help put food in those children's mouths. He comes into those homes. If those kids needs to be disciplined, that mother's saying, don't let me call your dad because I'm going to have your dad over here. And then there's times where the kids are able to go to that father's grandmother's house, the grandfather's house, who does the things that father isn't doing. That father comes around and is still engaged. The reason I tell that story is because there's no perfect rule book to this. There's no perfect, fairy tale story. There's families and there are situations where we're functioning as complete families, but in a non-traditional way. And I wanted this show for you as an example, and for me to be an example to the audience and be an example to the community, as our fathers are very engaged. We love our children. We have very solid core values, and we're striving to make an impact in our kids' lives, but also in other kids' lives as a father figure in a positive way here in Madison. And I believe that, refocusing on the responsibilities of fatherhood and standing on that is what's going to push us forward here in Madison. So I wanted to share my story, and I want you to do the same for us. Tell me how you feel, and kind of bring it all together for me in the same way that I did.
Yeah, well, the way I teach my kids is pretty much like you say. I don't lie to my kids either, and I show them respect for what they want and what they feel, and I let them voice their opinion for what they want, what they feel, and I just try to show them the way how I am, and lead the right way, and that's try not to let them get in trouble, try to teach them the best way, especially my daughter who in 8th grade, because at first she was a real hothead of trying to retaliate and get in trouble, but I had to show her, like, you don't do it like that. You can always retaliate by hitting people back. You got to talk it out, or you got to go tell the principal. You got to do something besides swinging back.
Right.
So I was trying to get out of that, and it took a while to get out of that. But she's there now. Now she don't really get into much conflict, and the best part about it too is she's so, they always say, oh, she's so nice. She helped everybody out. She got one little friend who's a little, how you call it?
Special needs?
Special needs, yes, got a special needs friend. And they say that she's the only person in the school who talks to her and helps her.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so.
But that's a testament to your daughter's heart condition, what you taught her.
Her, yeah. And they love her for that. And they always tell me, oh, she helped her. And the girl name is Abby or something. But she helps Abby all the time. And she's the only one. And I got to see Abby last week. I went to pick up early, and the little girl came in, and she's like, hey, you going home? She's like, this is my friend Abby. And that's my first time seeing her, but I heard about her so much. He gave her a hug, and she's like, go back to class now, Abby. Because first, Abby wanted to be standing there.
Right.
And my daughter said, go back to class now. I gave her a hug, and she said, okay, and went back to class. And I say, see, that's why I love her.
Yes.
I said, see? So I try to teach her to be nice to people, unless they're not nice to you, then try not to avoid them. Try not to talk to them people.
Right.
Just because they mean don't mean you got to be mean. Look for other ways to get around it. And she tried really hard. But like I said, that school, Toki, it was rough.
Now let's talk about that. Tell me about that.
Oh my, Toki was the worst school ever.
And tell me how you navigate, tell me why it was the worst, and tell me how you navigated that as a engaged father.
Why it was the worst? Because, for instance, at Toki, it'd be a group of girls, and they was like some of these girls have been suspended 6 or 7 times already.
Why are they still at the school?
Why are they? That's my question. Why are they still here? Because they're so young. We have to go through the protocol. I say, what's the protocol? This girl been suspended 6 times, and she's still here doing it. She don't care.
Doing
obviously.
the same things.
Doing the same thing, and it took like the end of the school year before they called some meeting and say, let's get all the bad girls in here. And it still didn't help, because most of the girls' parents wasn't even there. So the girls come in, and they just there all lolly-dolly doing their thing, talking, and whatever, because their parent wasn't there. But
Wow.
of course, I was there. Again, only black father again at that meeting. So time goes on, and it got better, though. It definitely got better, because I was so glad Spring Harbor accepted, because Spring Harbor, one of those schools, you have to be on the waiting list for years, and they let you in finally.
Okay.
So they finally let us in. And then you got bullies over there. But the only thing about this school is Chinese bully, white bully, black bully. They all hang together.
Right.
So when we go to
and
this
they're smart
meeting,
about the bullying.
yeah. So we go to the meeting, it's like, this is it? These the guys? You're like, yeah. I'm like, okay. So it really wasn't that bad. So, but they got it squashed.
Yeah.
And my thing was, I talk to the school, I call to the school, and I tell them what's going on. She say, this is happening. Okay, we investigate it. Okay. Call another day. Okay, this is going on. Okay, investigate it. But nothing is happening.
Right.
And I've steady calling. And so now when I show up at the school, now, oh no, why is he here? Because I've been calling. That's why I'm here. Now we got to settle this face to face. And now we get stuff done.
Right. So you have to be engaged.
You have to be engaged, and they have to know you engaged. So once they saw my face enough, and now it was no question, oh no, we call around that. Yeah, you know you can. Whenever you want to, I'm listening, I'm ready. And that's one good thing I'm glad, because now if it's a problem, they can just, hey, yeah, we got this problem, and call me, no problem. I should have been doing that. But it's not really her. It's her when she retaliate,
Right.
and that would be the problem.
Right. But that's typically how it happens with our kids, right?
Yeah.
So as fathers out in the community, we have to teach our kids good conflict resolution, right?
I did.
So we got to, and I know you're
That took
doing that,
forever.
but I know you're doing that, right?
That took
So we got to
forever.
teach them how to not freak out, how to have a calm conversation. Basically, we got to teach our kids how to manage their emotions.
Yeah.
Because
exactly.
as adults in our community, you know, the turn up is the way to go, right? So not be in control of your actions and your emotions, right? And then what happens from that? We go into the community. We come in contact with the police officer, right?
The police.
Jenny and Bruce is calm, telling that story like, I don't know why she's acting like that, right? You're freaking out, arms flailing. You're looking like the one that's disorderly. And it's a disconnect because they don't understand that your actions are literally putting you in a very negative space.
Yes, sir.
And we have so many of our kids that are turning up and being in those spaces, and what it suggests to the community, right? Because I'm being other man right now.
Right.
What it suggests to the community is that
parent
there's
ain't
no
taking care of
fathers in the
business.
house. There's horrible parents. There are no parents in the household, right? So that's what it's saying to the community. So for us, should we care about, you know, our public persona? I think so, because
I
the
think so.
public persona precedes you, and it precedes your children,
Yes.
right? So we should be concerned about that, but I'm more concerned about the core values in the household, because if we're doing what we're supposed to do in our homes,
Then that'd be all right.
then they're going to be all right. So they can go out into the world and navigate these landmines, these holes and these traps that are set for them to
waiting
fall
for 'em,
into,
yes,
right?
sir.
Instead of teaching them how to be, and I'll say this again, I teach my kids how to become adults, not functional kids, right? Because what do children do? Children complain, children always ask for help, children make all kind of excuses, right? Children don't get up and go to work every day. Children don't do those things, right? Adults are responsible and mean what they say and say what they mean, right? They don't make excuses. So my challenge is, in our community, we got to teach ourselves as adults, but also our children, how to become adults, real men, real women, real mothers, and real fathers, just not in action, but in all of the areas, because we got to build that strong foundation. I'll leave the closing words with you.
Yeah, well, you're right about that. We got to show the kids the right way. And it's up to us. If we don't lead them, who will?
I hear you. Well, guys, I want to thank you for joining the Conversation Shop. We'll see you next time. Thank you.